Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a headline that, really makes you do a double take. A familiar institution, suddenly with an old name. But it feels new again.
Right.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into exactly that. A recent presidential action, reintroducing a historical title for a really critical part of the U.S. government.
And what's fascinating here is how much meaning is packed into just a name, especially when you're talking national policy, how a country projects itself globally.
Absolutely.
Our source for this is an executive order. It's from the White House, signed by President Donald J. Trump on September 5th, 2025. And the title is pretty direct: Restoring the United States Department of War.
Wow. Okay, so straight to the point.
Very much so. It's a document that clearly lays out a vision, a path forward, and it's definitely got people talking.
So our mission today is to break this down. We want to give you, our listener, a really clear understanding of what this actually means.
Yeah. What changes right now? Why does the president think this specific historical name is so crucial for, say, strategic messaging?
Exactly. And what are the next steps laid out? We want you to walk away understanding not just the what, but really the why and the how behind this. It's a significant move.
It really is. It touches on national security, history, how a nation positions itself.
Right. So let's start with the immediate impact, the tangible stuff. This order, it's not just a suggestion, is it? It's presidential authority in action.
Correct. It's an order.
So what's the very first thing it actually does? What changes today for the Department of Defense?
Okay, so Section 2 of the order, that's where the implementation details are. And the key takeaway, it's the authorization of what they call secondary titles.
Secondary titles, what does that mean exactly?
It means the person we know as a Secretary of Defense is now also authorized to use the secondary title, Secretary of War.
Ah, okay. An additional title.
Yes. And similarly, the Department of Defense itself and the Office of the Secretary of Defense, they can now officially be referred to as the Department of War and the Office of the Secretary of War.
So we might start hearing those terms used officially.
That's the idea. The order is specific. It says these secondary titles can be used in, quote, official correspondence, public communications, ceremonial contexts, and non-statutory documents within the executive branch.
Non-statutory documents? That sounds important.
It is. So think press releases, internal memos, speeches. You'll start seeing and hearing these historical names alongside the familiar ones in many official settings.
That's a really crucial distinction then, this idea of a secondary title. So just to be crystal clear, while these new names are being introduced, the existing legal names, they don't just vanish overnight.
No, they don't.
Because changing statutory names, that sounds like a huge administrative and legal hurdle.
You've absolutely hit on a critical point there. The legal framework, the executive order, is very clear on this. Section 2E says explicitly, let me quote it, statutory references to the Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense, and subordinate officers and components shall remain controlling until changed subsequently by the law.
Okay, so the law is still the law.
Exactly. What that means for you, for everyone, is that for anything actually written into law right now, existing legislation, treaties, the formal legal documents defining government structures, the official name is still Department of Defense.
Right.
This executive order creates an option. It's a secondary way to refer to the department and its leadership, mainly publicly. But it doesn't and can't unilaterally change those existing laws.
So the analogy you mentioned earlier, like a formal nickname.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Think of it like a very formal, distinct operational name you can use in specific public and internal contexts. But your legal name, the one on your passport or birth certificate, that stays the same for now.
That really helps clarify things. It's not a full legal rebrand immediately, but it is an immediate shift in how the executive branch can talk about it.
Precisely.
And this applies down the chain, too, to other officials.
It does. The order covers subordinate officials as well.
Yeah.
So a Deputy Secretary of Defense could also use the secondary title, Deputy Secretary of War.
In those same contexts.
In those same specified contexts, yes. Official correspondence, public communications, and so on. And importantly, all other executive departments and agencies are directed to recognize these new titles.
As long as it doesn't cause problems.
Right, provided their use doesn't create confusion with existing legal obligations or, say, international agreements. It's about adding a layer of communication within the existing structure.
Okay. But, a name isn't just a label, especially not in Washington or in national policy. This executive order seems to spend a lot of time on the reason for the change. The why.
It really does.
It talks about history, strategic intent. What's the core message the president is trying to send by bringing back the Department of War title?
Well, if we look at Section 1, the purpose section, it lays out a pretty powerful argument. It explicitly connects the founders' intent to national strength and how we're seen globally.
The founder's intent.
Yeah. The order notes that way back on August 7, 1789, President George Washington established the United States Department of War. That's 236 years ago.
Wow. Long history.
And the order gives credit to that original Department of War, along with the Navy later on, for winning major conflicts. It mentions the War of 1812, World War I, World War II.
Right.
It says that department inspired awe and confidence and ensured freedom and prosperity for all Americans. The argument presented is that the founders chose the name Department of War, specifically, quote, to signal our strength and resolve to the world.
It is fascinating how much history is just baked into these names. You know, when Washington set it up, Department of War was just what it was. No smoothing things over. Makes you wonder what they'd think of Department of Defense.
Well, the order draws that contrast very directly.
So it's harking back to this time where the name itself was seen as projecting power. What's the contrast it makes with the current name, Department of Defense? It sounds like more than just semantics.
Oh, definitely more. It's presented as a profound philosophical shift. The document argues, and again I'm quoting, that the name Department of War, more than the current Department of Defense, ensures peace through strength.
Peace through strength, a familiar phrase.
Indeed. And the order elaborates. It says this name change moves beyond just a reactive defensive posture. It claims the name, quote, demonstrates our ability and willingness to fight and win wars on behalf of our nation at a moment's notice, not just to defend. Not just to defend, that's a key phrase, a very key phrase. For anyone listening who follows policy, this signals a shift. It suggests a more proactive, maybe even preemptive stance, a willingness to project power to secure national interests.
It's certainly a direct message, but you have to wonder. The word war itself, for many people, that could sound alarming, couldn't it? Could it escalate tensions? Does the order address that perception?
That's a really critical question, how this might land internationally or even domestically. But the executive order doesn't seem to offer language to soften the blow, so to speak.
So the directness is the point.
It seems that way. The emphasis is very much on the directness as a strategic advantage. It claims this name, quote, sharpens the department's focus on our own national interest and our adversaries' focus on our willingness and availability to wage war to secure what is ours.
Okay, so it's aimed internally and externally.
Exactly. Internally, to focus the department perhaps more on offensive capabilities, and externally, to make it crystal clear to allies and potential adversaries alike that the U.S. is prepared not just to defend, but to actively wage war if needed. The bluntness is the strategy.
An unambiguous signal, then.
That appears to be the intent.
So this immediate change, the secondary titles, that's just step one, it sounds like. What about the future? If it's just authorizing these designations now, what's the path to making Department of War the permanent legal name?
Right. It's clear this isn't meant to stop here.
There's a bigger plan.
Yes. The order sets out clear deadlines for more action, indicating that the long-term goal is a full statutory change, making it law.
Okay, what are those deadlines?
Within 30 days of the order's date, so 30 days from September 5th, 2025, the Secretary of War, meaning the current Secretary of Defense, has to notify Congress.
Notify them about what?
About which parts of the department, which offices or commands, have actually started using the secondary Department of War title. It's basically keeping Congress in the loop on the rollout.
Okay, step one, inform Congress. What's next?
Then, within 60 days of the order's date, the Secretary of War has to submit a really crucial recommendation to the President.
A recommendation on?
On the actions needed to permanently change the name, to make the Department of Defense legally the Department of War.
And what does that recommendation have to include?
It specifically needs to include proposed legislative and executive actions necessary to accomplish this renaming.
Legislative actions. Okay, so this confirms it. This isn't just the president saying, poof, it's changed.
Not at all.
It requires getting Congress involved to change the actual laws. That sounds like it could involve some pretty significant debate and political maneuvering.
Absolutely. It highlights the constitutional process. For a fundamental change like this, transforming it from a presidential directive using secondary titles into a permanent legal reality that requires legislation.
Congress holds the power to change the statute.
Precisely. So this executive order kicks off the process, it sets the direction, But the final permanent change hinges on congressional action. It's a really good example for our listeners of that interplay between executive authority and the legislative branch.
Makes sense. So, with such a big proposed change, are there any, general clauses or safeguards in the order? Any fine print we should know about?
Yes, Section 3 has what you might call the standard general provisions. Boilerplate, almost, but important boilerplate.
Legal guardrails.
Exactly. It clarifies that nothing in the order is meant to impair the existing legal authority of other departments or agencies, or the functions of the Office of Management and Budget, OMB.
So it's not a power grab over other parts of government.
Correct. It also says the order has to be implemented consistent with existing law and, crucially, subject to the availability of appropriations.
Ah, the money. So the president can order the name change process, but Congress still controls the funding for actually doing it, like changing signs, letterhead.
That's right. Congress holds the purse strings. So even if the secretary makes recommendations, funding any large-scale rebranding would likely require specific appropriations from Congress.
Okay, that's a key check and balance.
Right.
Anything else legally important?
Yes, one more critical point. It specifies the order is not intended to, and does not, create any right or benefit, enforceable at law or in equity. Meaning people or groups can't sue the government based just on this order, claiming some new right or benefit because the name changed. It prevents lawsuits based solely on the renaming effort itself.
Got it.
And finally, just a small detail, it notes that the costs for publishing the order itself are borne by the Department of War, which for now means the Department of Defense pays the publication fee.
Okay. Those details really paint the full picture of how these orders fit into the broader legal landscape.
They ensure it operates within existing frameworks.
So today, we've taken a real deep dive into President Trump's September 5th, 2025 executive order aiming to bring back the title Department of War.
We've unpacked that immediate step, authorizing the secondary titles.
Right, and we looked at the powerful reasons given, rooted in history, in the idea of peace through strength and sharpening that national focus.
And importantly, the roadmap laid out for a potential permanent legal renaming, which involves proposing legislative action to Congress. It really shows that dance between the executive and legislative branches.
It absolutely does. And this dive, it really highlights how language, how history, can be deliberately woven into official policy.
Yeah, it shapes how we talk about national defense, sure, but maybe even how the nation approaches its role in the world. It's a potent example of nomenclature signifying a potential shift in philosophy.
Both internally, focusing the department, and externally, sending that very direct message we talked about.
Exactly. For anyone tracking national policy or just trying to understand how government works, it's a fascinating window. It shows how strategy is formed, how one order can start a big shift.
And it reminds us, doesn't it, that every word in these official documents can carry immense weight and meaning. So here's something to think about, a final thought for you, our listener. Consider just how that simple change of a name, from defense to war, might subtly, or maybe not so subtly, shift the mindset, not just within the government, but across the nation and in how we interact on the global stage. Even before any laws are changed, what impact could just using that name have on our identity or on international relations? Something to mull over.